All right, Mike. We made it back. We've made it through a pretty long week, man. But it's been a lot of fun. How are you, buddy?
Good, good. Yeah, I mean these big events that are popping up with a little more frequency are a lot of fun. Because we're
Yep.
getting to see a lot of matches, we're getting to see a lot of programming, getting to watch a lot of players, and it's
Indeed.
exciting. So yeah, it's been good, but it does distract you from doing things that you need to do to get through the day, like work.
Right. Yeah. No big deal, right? Because I'm getting I'm getting up super early in the morning, and then I'm getting up, and then I'm falling back asleep. So then
Yeah.
my whole thing is just shifting left and right. I tell I tell you what though. Listen, for all the Americans that go and complain, when they come to the States, go and support them so we can have more events here in the States. So I don't got to get my ass up at 3 a.m. So
Yeah.
we can have some more things on this side of the pond. But anyway, I'm not going to start off by going on tilt. Um, I, it was an exciting day, Mike, and it started off early this morning. This is the final day of the UK Open, and it started off with the semifinals. So let's just jump right into it, man. It ended up being a let me see here, where am I at? So it ended up with Josh and David to go in and kick us off, Mike.
Yeah, well, the one thing that I am slightly disappointed in by the last couple of days is that other than Josh's match yesterday, there really haven't been any thrillers.
No.
They've been pretty one-sided, and that can happen in this format with this type of break, and the level of talent that these guys have. That one player can just get away from the other player, and it's just too hard to come back on. This morning, Josh, we talked yesterday, for David to beat Josh, he had to play perfect, and Josh had to get a little bit wobbly, which he's shown the penchant for doing in the past. But, Josh started firing away, and David really didn't get a lot of chances. When he did, he missed a couple opportunities early to make a little bit more of a match out of it and to get Josh feeling like there might be a dogfight, and he just never got there. He got run over pretty well.
Yeah, I mean it's so hard to do, and when it comes to a guy like Filler, you have to bury him when you get a chance. And
You do,
he's one of those top players where, especially early on in the tournament, I mean, besides like his close friends, when Josh gets in a hole in an event, people are watching because they want him to have less bullets to go on fire because they know
yeah,
just how dangerous a player that he can be. I think he got away with murder against Alexa, the Croatian. I think is where he's from.
yeah,
Or,
yeah,
I could be mistaken, but anyway, um, winning a hill battle with him, who knows if it's in the cards, but he certainly looked sharp against David.
yeah,
When I tuned in was about maybe a quarter or halfway through the match, and I tell you, Mike, I mean, it was just full steam ahead for Josh.
yeah. He didn't, he didn't miss anything. He didn't make any mistakes. He just looked as comfortable and free swinging as you can get. And I think he knew pretty early on that he had David on his heels. And then, um, you know, he just never let off the gas, which is what Josh can do.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly has that gear. I mean, going into it, you're everyone was hoping for that dream Shane versus Filler final, and I think if you would have picked who out of the Spaniards would have been there, you would have liked David over Ruiz, maybe just for more of a namesake. But then you
Yeah,
realize he's playing against Josh, and I mean Josh throughout the entire match just looked phenomenal. Just going over some stats here, Mike. It looked like he had let's see, a break and win of 8 out of 11, balls potted
yeah.
94, two missed shots out of the entire match, 98% that he put that ball away, Mike. How sick is that? In a race to 11.
Yeah, no, he didn't miss, and we do want to apologize. I guess Alexa is Serbian, not Croatian. It's a
Oh,
it's a
my
big it's
my
a big it's a
apologies.
big it's a big difference to
Sorry,
people in that
sorry.
area. So,
I meant no
but he
disrespect.
he played great yesterday, and I would love to have seen him win. He did have his shot in that last game and didn't bury it. So, and Josh came
You're talking
in and
about
played
Alexa.
out. Yeah, yeah, he had his
Well,
shot at the
Mike, this
two
is
ball.
this is one thing that really pisses me off the more I think about it is that I didn't even get to watch it. I couldn't even see it.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you can't have when you're and I know they had another match going on, and I know there's
yeah,
broadcasters and all those things, all those logistics that you got to go and juggle. But Mike, when you got Josh on the ropes
yeah. No,
at
you
10-10
it
in a
was so
single elimination,
it was so
pan the
frustrating
camera.
yesterday. Yeah, no, and they had a camera on that table. They didn't have to pan it. All they had to do was, I think that was during the Mario He match against David, and really all you had to do was, put those guys on ice for 3-4 minutes, and let's watch the end of this other rack.
Right.
It's not that tough to do. So yeah, if we're going to start, getting into the little nitpicky stuff that drives us nuts, we may as well go ahead and do it. And that's one of the things that drove me nuts yesterday too. I'm thinking these guys, it's 10-10 and filler might go down, and it's not round one, round two, round three. This is to get to the semis. And so yeah, that was really frustrating. I mean, I did get to see um, that last rack on YouTube later. They or on Facebook later. They posted it.
Do they? I didn't even get to see
Yeah,
it.
it was a great rack. I mean, Alexa had a shot at the one, banked it. It hit the tip of the side pocket, went straight down the rail into the corner pocket. So he flipped into one ball. Then he
Nice.
had kind of a long but pretty straight shot onto two, and he didn't make it. And Josh went out from there, and it was not an easy out. He came with a really long shot onto seven that he had to just kind of baby it in and take what the table left him for the nine, which was a really pretty, it was one of those, predator 10 ball spot shots. It was not an easy shot, really pretty thin, and he hit it in. So, that's what Josh can do. But anyways, getting
No,
back,
there's
and
a few guys though who you want to be in that position to fire in a nail biter, especially
yeah,
when pressure counts. Albin comes to mind, Jason comes to mind, but Josh is right in that mix of guys who when it's tight, Mike, and it's
yeah.
you got to really put that ball away, and it's not a gimme. He's one of those players that I want, in
And
my foxhole with me.
half the time it looks so easy. It's not look like he's hitting and hoping. I mean, he just buries these balls. So yeah, he and Jason, as far as shot making, really tough to top. So, but yeah, that was frustrating yesterday, not being able to see that as it was happening, because that's the drama. I mean, that's what draws fans. That's what you want to put on TV. So why did it switch to that? Someone's gonna have to tell me what the director in the truck was thinking when he didn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of spots where, I mean, early on in the Shane match, and me and you were kind of messaging each other where it's like, what the hell's going on when it's 3-1, and then the feed cuts out, and there seems to have been a bit more frequency as we've gotten into the final 16, which I would hope for that it's now to the point where we've already kind of ironed everything out. It should be a little more smooth.
Yeah,
Now it's crunch time, and really, I mean, as a fan, you want to watch those like little moments in the match that can go and sway things. When I came back from Shane at 3-1, then they come back talking about this dramatic foul where it was a
yeah.
whole big
Yeah,
old thing. I'm like,
the timing
yeah,
was really bad.
and I had
Um,
no idea what they were talking about, Mike.
yeah. Well, what happened was apparently when they play music during the broadcast, they can get away with copyrighted music, on Sky, I think.
Oh,
But
I
on
get you.
Facebook, if
Right.
they're playing copyrighted music in the background, Facebook just automatically just cuts them off.
It's a
And so
wrap.
now you got to take a couple minutes to get back on. So yeah, I
Well, if
understand that
that's
that's
the case,
what happened,
then
but by now you should figure out, okay, this is copyrighted. Maybe we may not
yeah,
want to play this.
maybe don't play that song. Yeah,
So
and maybe it'll pick it up.
yeah, but I don't think that, obviously they weren't planning on running all this on Facebook over the weekend. They had been planning on just being on the
No,
zone.
right,
So maybe they're, just weren't prepared for running everything on Facebook over the weekend. But
right. And
but
to
yeah,
be
there were
fair,
there were there
they've
have been
also
some
stepped up.
frustrating moments.
They've also stepped up in adding, interviews like Michael Bridges come in through the last
Yeah.
16. They've had an
Well, I
MC.
mean,
So,
what's a matchroom event without an interview of Pia Filler? I mean,
yeah.
I'd like to I'd like they're interviewing her when somebody else is playing. I mean,
Oh, Mike.
I love Pia Filler. She's
Just
cute. She's articulate. She's fun. She's in Josh's
Mike is the
corner.
most
But
savage guy I've ever met
I've
in my
had
life.
I've had a little bit too much of Pia filler lately on natural events. So
Well,
let's find someone else with a girlfriend or a wife and interview somebody else.
I tell you what,
Anyways,
you're gonna continue to go and get her because Josh does not seem to be slowing down. And if I think about guys who are playing great 9 ball today, he's certainly up there in that list, Mike. And
yeah,
it's pretty remarkable. And I remember the run that he had a few years ago, and starting off with, I don't want to say an inaugural event because the U.S. Open had already had a long history, but it was
right.
Matchroom's first year of them taking over the U.S. Open, and Josh ended up winning it. And now you start off with a brand new event, and he's in a final, Mike, and he's going in there. Um, Whether it's fair or not, he's going to go in there as the favorite. I
Yeah,
know him and
been
Ruiz.
going there as a pretty good favorite. He would have gone in there as a favorite against Shane, I think.
You think so?
I think not by much, but I think if
Mm,
there was betting odds, online, I think he would have probably been a slight favorite.
yeah, I don't know, Mike. Shane's coming off that world championship run. I think, but that was a matchup I think everybody wanted to see, but
Yeah, of
it was
course.
not to be, Mike, because Ruiz ended up just
Yeah,
making easy work of Shane. You can say, Shane stepped on his own toes or whatever, but Ruiz came out the gate just firing, Mike, and he looked sharp, and that break looked monstrous.
yeah, he did. I mean, Shane made a couple of mistakes. It would have been interesting to see how it would have gone if Shane could have gotten back into it. If it was 6-6, 7-7, then it would have been fun to watch. But Shane did stub his toe a couple of times. It kept him from getting any kind of. He got unlucky a couple times, where he'd break the
Couldn't get
balls
any
and
momentum, Mike.
no shot, couldn't get anything rolling. And I think that affected a little bit of his couple of his cue ball speed mistakes that he made. He didn't miss many shots at balls in the hole, but he played poor position a couple times, overran some shots, things like that. But
I mean, he's a
he had a lot
rhythm
of
player,
pressure
Mike.
on him to get. He is a rhythm player, and Sanchez Ruiz just wasn't giving him much chance to get into a rhythm. So he knew
No.
when he had got to the table, and I don't know if it's one of those things where you're trying to win 3 games at a time, but Shane just, he just
I mean,
couldn't
when
seem
you
to get
start
it
off
together.
3-0, Mike, and I mean, I
Yeah,
know it's a race to 11, and I mean, Shane's definitely got the patience to an extent to go and crawl back into a match. When we saw it in the World Championships against Mika, I know they brought that up 18,000 times, but um, oh, it's been brutal. But anyway, um, it starts to get overwhelming, and plus it's the moment. You're on
yeah,
center stage. It's the semifinal. You're in a major. I don't think from. I mean, Shane doesn't have any Mosconi pressure. He doesn't have any 9 ball rankings pressure. For
right,
him, it's just pride and hardware and
right.
making money. So but whenever he did, I think early on it should have been 3-0, ended up being 3-1. Ruiz made a mistake and Shane capitalized. But then that next rack, it's just he, after the break, it was like it was looking good. It was looking good until it wasn't, Mike. And then funky
Yeah,
ball would kind of roll in the way, or
right.
he'd end up just hooking himself. And
Yeah,
he just never could get his wheels turning, Mike. And it's a
yeah.
shame because he's pretty exciting once he does kind of get that momentum.
He is, and that would have been fun. That's what I was saying. It would have been fun to see that match get a little bit tighter later and have a couple guys running 3, 4 racks at a time. And I thought Shane was going to get on one of those runs when it was 2-1, and he got back to the table. He got back to the table at 2-0, made it 2-1, and then looked like an easy run out. And he hooked himself, I think, onto 6 or something. And all of a sudden, it's totally different. So. I guarantee every time he did get to the table and Ruiz went back to his seat, he was holding his breath because you could be there for a while. But to Sanchez Ruiz credit, he's been playing great all week since losing at the beginning. He's really, I mean, he's played so well. His break was fantastic against Shane. Even when it wasn't good, he was getting. There was a rack or two where he'd break and the cue ball be all the way down at the end rail at the foot rail, be below the foot spot.
Right.
And oh, by the way, the two would be like right next to it. So he got a couple of good rolls there too. But he was hitting because he was crushing the break, hitting it hard.
It's
But he
it's
doesn't
been
have the cue ball control on the break that Shane has. But he was
yeah.
still he was still getting some great
Powerful.
layouts, and when he got the good layout,
He was getting
he
some
was
rolls though too after that
he
break. I mean, some balls were getting
right,
like pushed around to go and just the same way like at the very end where a ball would get in Shane's way. It was the opposite when
right.
whenever like a two ball would come off the rail and then end up just dead perfect angle to go and get position on three. But
That's the way these matches go.
it
You
does,
know,
it does. And I mean, the pool gods are going to do what they want to do,
right,
but to Ruiz's credit, he even whenever there were moments where maybe he slipped up, or every time Shane made a mistake, he capitalized. He did his
yeah,
job. Every time that maybe one of those funky rolls happened, he put him away. He did his
yep.
job, Mike. He did everything he was supposed to do,
He's
given
playing
the
great.
opportunity.
He's playing. Uh, Aside from Shane and Filler through the week, uh, you know, his first match aside, Sanchez Ruiz has been playing as well as anybody. I mean, he's played 12 matches now, 11 matches now,
It's
whatever.
crazy,
And
Mike.
from that second match on,
Right.
he's been pretty dominant in his matches. He hasn't been, scraping through a lot of these matches. He's been
Well, he's
pretty
6-0 in the
solid.
hole, and 6-0 in the hole on the one loss side on the TV table. And I mean, I hate to say it like this, but he was just about to get embarrassed out of this tournament because,
Yeah.
he had a lot of high expectations because now he does have expectations because he plays well. He's won an event already, once this year, a
And he's
major,
got
mind you.
pressure too. He's got pressure. He's
Yeah.
trying to he's trying to finally get into that, Matchroom Arena, trying to get into the Mosconi Cup team. So he's got a lot of pressure on himself to do well, and he's give him all the credit in the world. He's a great, great guy and a great player, and there's no quit in him.
He looked good, Mike. We talked about this a bit yesterday. Funky spots in tournaments and maybe Magic can go and strike. And I remember watching that match with Ruiz, and I always like try to find these moments in events because it happens. It just does. I don't know why, but it just does. And I remember thinking, nah, there's no way. This is too early on. Like I'm not gonna give it more weight than what it needs to. He needs to get his ass together because you cannot be down 6-0 and get away with one
Yeah,
against the guy you're supposed to go and dominate. And that's what I chalked it up to, right, Mike? But here we are. It's the last day. It's the last match, and
yeah,
Ruiz is in that final.
yeah. And so uh, from a sentimental standpoint, you have to be pulling for him in the final because to go from the one loss side on your first match down 6-0 in your second match, and all of a sudden you're in the final playing for the UK Championship against Josh Filler. I mean, if he goes and beats Shane in the semi and Filler in the final,
Okay, time out, Mike. Time out. Oh yeah, you want to talk about an impressive win. It doesn't get
yeah,
much more impressive than having those two heads on your
at
shoulder
the
there
end of
at
the
the
end
end
of
of an
your
event.
11-game run.
For absolutely right. So I'm gonna fire out some stats at you, Mike. The last, let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, like 8 to 10 times they've played. We talked about Josh being a favorite. I'm gonna bring up two Premier League pool matches, which I'm not gonna give that a whole lot of weight because it's
Yeah,
the PLP and the
yeah,
race to 5. They split sets, Mike, five
right.
four each. Both of them went hill. This is this year.
Derby,
Along Derby City this year. Everybody remembers the final. What people don't remember is the fact that Ruiz sent Josh to the one loss side or the buy-in side early on in that event. 2 times in Derby City, both 9-ball format. Ruiz wins. I don't have the score here, but he won both those
right,
sets. This is in January of this year, Mike. Euro Tour in Asia. Ruiz wins 9-6. This is in 21. In 19, US Open 9-ball, Ruiz wins 11-4. In Euro Tour Netherlands, Ruiz wins 9-7, Mike. I'm seeing a trend here, Mike, and it's all going one way. And I listen, if you're gonna go and ask 100 pool fans who they think would have won the last 10 matchups between these two, there's not very many that would have been picking Ruiz, Mike.
yeah, no, 100%. And you got to believe that. Obviously, you don't even have to believe it. You know that Josh knows that going into this event. You know that Josh knows that Sanchez Ruiz has had a better record against him than Shane has. So,
So you
it's
wait, so you think maybe he's rooting for Shane? 'Cause that's a good question because we all know Josh's record against Shane over the last 4 years
yeah,
or
yeah,
so.
yeah. I, I don't know if guys at that level in that position are rooting for one guy over another. I mean, Josh is such a confident,
He is.
cocky
He does not like
player.
confidence.
There's not
See,
he's
I
not going
don't
to
think
sit there and say to
cockiness though,
himself,
Mike.
I'm afraid of Sanchez Ruiz. I know he's going to know that he's got a worse record against Sanchez Ruiz, But if I'm Josh, I'm sitting there going, fine, time to turn this around. This is going to even out. I'm that good. So it's kind of I don't think he really was sitting there rooting for one player over the other.
You get you get bits of just the depth of Josh's pool knowledge when you go and speak to him because he remembers everything. He
All pool
remembers.
players do.
Well, yeah, but Josh is one of these guys where like he'll remember. It never ceases to amaze me. Whenever I'll bring something up to him, he'll tell me the moment, the shot, the way the balls were laid out, like it was yesterday, Mike. And I can bring up some random match that I thought was significant relative to the conversation, and and so I guarantee you he remembers his record against Ruiz.
Oh,
And
no doubt about it.
I, but
But
Josh is
let him.
one of those.
He's also 24 years old. Talk to him when he's 50 and see how many of those matches he remembers.
Well, that's fair. That's fair, Mike. But he's got a lot of matches under his belt.
He does. He
I
does. You
think
spend that
I
much
think
time
what
on the winner's side, you get.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I just read off some matches they play. They obviously have no shortage of history with one another.
Right.
They both go and play in plenty of Euro tours as well. They're both very versed with each other's game. I think they both kind of showed a similar class in breaking in this event, Mike. And if we look at Ruiz's stats against Shane, he had 9 breaks and wins, 94 balls potted, the same percentage of pot success, Mike, 98%.
Yeah.
um, and a break and run percentage of 55. Let me see what was Josh's break and run percentage. I'm curious. 50%. Wow.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't
Yeah.
have thought that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, numbers are big in pulling out, and I love these guys, whether it's Matchroom or anyone else, AccuStats, who goes and puts together these stats. And shout out to Fargo Rate, because those guys helped me out get some of those stats that I read off earlier to you. But I think it's pretty impressive, and he's one of these guys where he hasn't been given the credit that maybe he deserves. But these are chances where, if you want respect, Mike, you got to go and get it. You got to go
Yeah.
and beat the guys to go and get that respect. And you already got one in Shane, but the job's not done yet, Mike.
No, it's not. He's got a big job ahead of him. But if, like I said before, if he can pull off the second one and he comes from the loser side after the first match and finishes with wins over Shane and Filler, then then he's done everything you would want to do as a player, to make your first big win. So yeah, he's.
Who do you like in the final, Mike?
I like Sanchez Ruiz.
Do you
I
really?
was thinking during the Shane match that if Sanchez Ruiz wins this, not only am I rooting for him because he's a great guy and he hasn't won a big international event like this, and this came from the loser side, but I just think that he's playing great. And I don't think he's going to be phased by playing Josh. He's got a good record against Josh. He beat him at Derby. He's going to come in confident. I think if he gets off to an early lead, I'd be really interested to see how Josh responds.
I can't argue with a whole lot of things you say, Mike, but I'm going to say this. There's a difference between playing on, let's say, a Derby City final stage and playing on a Matchroom final stage. Josh has a lot of experience playing in big finals of Matchroom events. And if I'm going to go and give him any kind of edge, it's in that regard, because it's a different environment, Mike. It's a different animal. I hear it from all these top players all the time.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. But I mean, his semifinal match against Shane is on a big stage in a big tournament on TV, on the TV table. He didn't even break a sweat. So
No, but
I
he also
think
didn't have any
think
heat
that
either, Mike.
being able to do this twice today, I don't think the final is going to be any different to him than the semifinal.
I think that both of Shane and Josh are similar in regards to where they're both rhythm players, and they both like to punish you, and punish you
Hmm.
for extended periods of time, not just punish you with one or two. They want to punish you with fours, fives, and maybe even a six here and there. Um, he's intimidating on the table.
Yep.
The pace in which he plays is exciting. Ruiz has got a similar pace of play. He doesn't mess around, and I love that
Mm-mm.
about him. Um, I'm curious, Mike. You got to show what you're worth here, and this is the moment. If you're Ruiz, and you can't just he reminds me of one of these guys where, like, a Grabe, kind of on the cusp of wanting to go and break through. Maybe you should be in that Mosconi 5, but you got to go and win events to go and get there. Ruiz, for many years, I've been saying, has been the best Spaniard. I remember back in, I think it was 1920, going and watching him just embarrass Big Co when Co was just, full steam ahead at the International. He followed that up with making the final 16 of the U.S. Open, I think that same year or maybe the following year.
Yeah.
So he's had a lot of successes in pool, but just getting this kind of matchroom win under your belt, Mike, would be massive.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. And, he knows that. I think that, we don't have to tell him we're not going to tell him anything that's not already in his head. And my hope is that he just doesn't put any undue pressure on himself going into the final because of all those unanswered, little questions or hurdles. I just hope that he goes in there and he has fun and just starts whacking the balls. Because if he does, it could be a great final. It could be. I want to see one of these things go at least to an 8-8 type of situation. Where there's only a couple games. Where it's a race to three. So maybe we'll get that out of this. I hope so.
I remember saying like a few years back that about how Josh can be more of a front runner, and if you get him in a hole early, he can check out.
Yeah.
I've seen a completely different Josh in that regard over the last like 2 years because he's shown the heart that he has and the fight that he has, along with his talent, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to keep on beating a dead horse. I think it's going to be a great final, and as much as we talked about like the dream matchup of Shane versus Josh, this is equally as compelling for me. Maybe not
Yeah.
from a name standpoint, but if you think about just competitive pool, Mike, these guys are top shelf. And when I read some of those matches to you, a lot of them were within 2 to 3 games going to 9. That shows how tight it really is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can hope that's what that they both come through with good, good performances this afternoon, and then chips fall where they fall. Yeah.
Well, the match should start here. I think in about the next in the
Half
next
hour.
30 minutes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think 11:30 Central Time if you're here in the US. If you want to know where it's going to be shown, I don't know. Uh, I'm
Facebook
I'm
is always a good place to start. Just hope that they're not playing any copyrighted music, because
right,
it'll be
right.
8 to 8, and all of a sudden they're going to play like some Elton John tune, and we're going to miss it until it's over.
The Masters final didn't start till it was 4-4, Mike. It did not start till it was 4-4, low sum, at the table. And I really hope that's not the case in this final because I'm really looking forward to it. It's been a hell of an event. It really has. And despite these little speed bumps along the way, um, I want to give full credit to Matchroom because they've done a fantastic job as far as I'm concerned. The whole coverage of the
Yeah.
event from beginning to end. I love the way they go and tackle these multi-table events. I do. I wish that these last few days we would have been able to watch more of these, 2 to 3 tables that we've been, spoiled in leading up to it,
Yeah.
because the quality of each match is just at a different level come day 5 compared to what it was day 1 and day 2.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I just wonder how we're going to get to that, because people got to realize that it's a promotion company, and these are their tournaments, and they've got
right.
partnership deals, television deals. They're not going to keep their deal with the Zone for the final couple of days if they're showing one of the matches free on Facebook Live, and everybody's going over to watch that instead of paying their $10 to watch, or their $20 to watch
It's
it on
true,
the
Mike.
Zone. So it's just you got to look at the business end of it too, and let them do the things that are going to allow them to make the money, that are also going to allow them to make these events
I'd
bigger and
pay a
better.
little more for an extra table though at an event.
I would too, no doubt. But I
Yeah.
mean, you have people every time that there's something on the Zone who are screaming about their $20, and
Oh,
it's
it's
that's
crazy.
it's an investment in your sport, kids. Just pony up to $20 and stay offline.
And you know, credit to them because they've added events while not increasing that price as well.
Right,
So if I think about what I paid that 100, or what I expected to pay that, because I paid the 100 for the year,
right.
what I expected to go and get, and I thought it was already a great value starting off with. I'm even more appreciative because it's so many more events being added to the calendar.
Yeah, you're
But yeah,
100% right. I mean, it's $100 for the year,
right.
and if it was just the Masters, the World Cup of pool, the traditional four match, still you break it down by number of matches you watch, and it's like 50 cents a match. I mean, come on, guys,
Mhm.
quit your belly aching and
And they're always the best players. I mean, well, I
yeah,
mean, if as long as
in the
the
man,
Asian
yeah,
players are there, yeah. But you get my point, Mike. It's always the best
yeah,
players in the sport that you're able to go
yeah,
and watch. It's not like you're watching, the guys around the corner at the hole in the wall,
right,
at
right.
least most of them.
So yeah, it's things are just getting better. More events, bigger events, better coverage. Still hiccups along the way. There's going to be, but just ride it out. It's all going in the right direction.
All right, Mike. So you got Ruiz. I guess you can twist my arm and I'll take Joshy, and
How many games you giving me?
you know what? If I were to go and just handicap it from a name standpoint, um, and I'm gonna take out the stats that I read earlier, just from a
Yeah,
name standpoint. I think Ruiz probably needs at least two. I think that's probably a fair line, giving him two going to 11, especially because it's winter break and we saw just how imposing that he can actually be
yeah,
against a big name. So I think it's going
yeah.
to be a great final. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll be watching. I'll be watching somewhere. I don't care if I got to call someone who's over there and have them
Hold
FaceTime
up
me
their
to go and
phone.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll say put it up till you get kicked out, buddy. But either way, I'll be watching. Mike, I appreciate you jumping in, especially last
sure.
minute as always.
Yeah, it's
So
always fun.
it's always a good time. But we appreciate y'all for tuning in, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon.